Hello and welcome to the new episode of Thought Leadership series on mapping the business impact of learning brought to you by ETH and Coursera. I am excited to introduce our guest for today. We have with us Amaresh Singh, Chief Human Resource Officer at GE South Asia, and Dallas Krishnan, Managing Director Enterprise at Coursera. Welcome, Amaresh and Dallas.
Hey, hi, Apeksha.
So
Hey,
without much
Dallas.
delay, yeah, thank you for joining us. And so, without much delay, let's begin today's session. Amresh, let me begin with you first. So, because we are talking about the business impact of learning, as a CHRO, what are your top expectations from enterprise learning programs? And what are the top challenges you would expect these programs to solve for the organization?
Hey, thanks, Apeksha. I feel honored to be here talking to you on enterprise learning programs. Um, Now, before I start to answer your question, let me give you a background of what GE has in the system. So the GE's journey started around 2016-17 when we were building the brilliant factory concept. And it's a huge company across the globe, 108 odd countries. And therefore, to have the same concept flowing across the globe to build a brilliant factory, there was this concept of brilliant learning was launched. And it was about to train the workers on the jobs for the future. It included massive open online courses in multiple languages, workshops, immersion boot camps in lean manufacturing, and training for advanced technology. So it was like a huge program launched, and it was to bring in that no oneness of training across the globe. And this was the start of your journey. And what we have today is we have two learning platforms. One is called GE Learning. It's an enterprise learning platform, and the one is called GE Brilliant U. Now, what is GE Learning? GE Learning empowers you to expand your knowledge, grow your skill set. It is a complete learning journey. GE Learning is about like 3,850 topics that it covers. It has 1,150 odd curriculum. These are very self-paced online curriculum, video-based, virtual with instructor. The focus is on what is core to the development, what is core to the performance, and what is core to the organization. And the second platform we have is of GE Brilliant U, and this is GE Brilliant U eliminates the mission of Crotonville. Crotonville was our is like a GE flagship center for the leadership learning. Crotonville, no, everyone knows that. I'm sure you must have heard about it.
Yes.
It was the learning center, globally acclaimed and best in class. And the aim was to inspire, connect, and develop the GE leaders of the future. And GE Brilliant U has imbibed in it the mission of Crotonville. It is designed to unlock the potential, discover new capabilities. The vision was of GE Brilliant U was like this. It was to offer insanely engaging, appropriately personal, and socially connected learning experience. So this is what we have in our GE system today. Coming to expectations of a CHRO from a ELP, ELPs must have learner at the center of everything, what the learner wants to learn and how they want to learn. ELPs should not be aggregators. The aim should be to make the experience as personal as it can be. Okay, and it should connect all platforms and systems available for the learner. ELPs should be aimed at democratization of learning. What it means is we have to let go of all the controls. Now, if ELPs, no, in the past, the trainings provided by in different businesses, the owners of the training programs used to guide like what should be done, how you should do it, etc., etc. So that control thing needs to go away. It has to be the democratization, and learning is very social. It ELP should be able to deepen that expertise, the skill set, the experience the learner has. It should further be able to enhance that. It should be easily accessible. It should, like, learner should be very easily able to, when they log in, they should understand, okay, how to find the solution I am looking at, how to get to that is that it should have also have the flexibility of learning at any point of time from anywhere. So flexibility, ease of access. It should also have things which are like beyond broad training, micro training in terms of videos, for very specific things. It should be scalable. It should enable um, the learner to drive collaboration, use the technology, learning communities. So these are few things as a CHRO. If you say these are the few things that I mentioned, which a CHRO looks at what an ELP should have. Now, the challenges you asked, the second part of the question, what ELP should solve for an organization. Um, they the ELP should be very clear in clarifying, like, what is uh, what are the things that are being addressed. Is it to core to the development, or is it core to the performance? I mean, is it a program that will enhance performance on your job, or is it going to be a program that is going to develop you? It could be a program on, very core to organization, the culture, the process, the employee needs to learn when they are in the organization. No, it so this is one of the challenges. The others are um, practicing and applying new skills. I mean, online you practice. The programs should have those learning activities imbibed in them that help you close that gap between learning and on-the-job performance. It should also embrace a culture of discussion, constructive conversation. So these are few things that these are the challenges that it should be solving. It should also help to promote, as I said earlier, collaboration and team. It should also engage with mentors and managers. It should not be in a silo. It has to engage with mentors and managers. And before, there's one more thing I would like to put on table is this journey of moving to ELP has its own constraints, and it has its own challenges in terms of the readiness of few things to face this disruptions. And those things are like the learning community. Is the learning community ready to face this disruption of ELP? Learning infrastructure, learning systems. So these are few challenges which ELP will face. I mean, this needs to be resolved. It should be scalable. For a company like ours, it should be like one experience across the globe. That's how I say it. That could be that these are the challenges it should be solving.
So thank you,
Oh,
Amresh, for highlighting those expectations and the challenges so rightly here. So, Dallas, I would like to bring you into the picture here. And, Coursera being a global learning platform, if you can provide us with a macro view on how the skills landscape has evolved in the last maybe 18 months or so, and what are the emerging skills of the future, if you can please throw some light on this.
Sure. Thank you, Piksha. And Amaresh, thanks a ton for your inputs. You actually have stolen everything else that I had written and come, so I have nothing more to speak. Thank you. But very, very interesting to hear your perspectives, especially on the requirements that you mentioned of an ELP. But let me talk through maybe. As Coursera, we have about 92 million learners globally, and we see ourselves more as an ecosystem of learning as a learning platform, right? On which we have educators, which is basically top universities in the world and the top companies in the world, who are the ones who are creating the content. We obviously have the learner at the center, which is about 92 million. And those learners typically come either as individuals or they come through institutions, which is corporates, campuses, or through governments, right? These are the three institutions who come. So that's the platform that we have. So by virtue of having about 92 odd million learners, or about 2,900 odd companies, various industries. We tend to have some data view of what's going on in this world. So at the topmost level, we classify what we see in terms of future of skills. We see it in two areas. We call them digital skills and human skills. Right? This is at the topmost level. Now, if you think of the evolution of digital skills, it's kind of most pervasive today, right? Think of a company like GE today. I guess at one point, machines and factories were inanimate objects, but today, with IoT, you can actually virtually wake up a dead machine, so to say, and talk to it, right? Communicate with it. So it's become so pervasive. So it's important to have digital skills in most functions. Most functions are getting transformed, and in many ways, the way I would foresee this is that anything that is repetitive in nature and can be solved with technology will get solved with technology, right? So I would use the word, it will get algorithmed in, so to say, right, at some point in time. Anything repetitive in nature through automation. The other part, which you cannot automate, will be the skills that are more human in nature, right? So, and though that's the aspect where we feel as the digitization brings in and digital skills become more foundational in nature, we will start seeing the human skills as the differentiating skills in nature. The pace at which technology will change is only going to become faster, right? I guess the slowest rate of change in technology is what is happening today. Look forward and you can actually think about it. It will be far more different. Skill currency, what used to be 10 years, 15 years, to Amaresh's point at some point, earlier learning was built around what the factories needed. But now that's changing because there is no particular learning that is relevant for a decade or 2 decades. It changes every few years, right? We talk of skill currency between 2 years to 5 years. So the human skills that allow for people to learn, which is the skill of adaptability, the skill of creativity, right? To absorb these new changes that are emerging and then apply it back and learn from it and then apply it back to making your businesses better will become much more critical skills in the future. Right. So that's the way we see this evolution happening. Of course, there is a ton of data that we see today. We typically see three broad areas. If I were to talk today, we'd see business, technology, and leadership as three areas where we feel there is the maximum amount of demand in terms of what learners consume on our platform. Over to your picture.
Thank you, Dennis. Very well articulated. You know what? It's no secret that talent gap has always been a challenge for HR leaders. We have always been come to understand that use of people analytics has emerged as a helpful tool in this area that can help organizations uncover the existing and missing skills and plan to close that gap. So, Amresh, how have you used HR data to proactively identify skills gap? And once you run a skills audit of your workforce, how do you model that data to understand how long it will take to close the skills gap and what remediation needs to take place?
Yeah, so a picture, like one of the key element we follow in our system is the competency assessment. The competency model is developed for all the functions across, and which helps us to enable, objectively assess the competency level of the role holder of a critical role, and the competency assessment cycles depend on the nature of the function and also the change that is taking place around that. So it may range from 1 to 2 years, and this is kind of the duration of the cycle. The analysis of the competency level we do today gives us no a kind of at par below the level or above the level. So for the function, we get an assessment like that, and it helps us to identify those key learning programs, the themes, key learning themes that will help to close the gap for the function that exists for the function. And so those key learning themes are picked up. Based on these key learning themes, every individual goes through the their own IDPs, the individual development plan or a learning plan that focus on learning and development of the role holder. Now, depending on the competency level required and the time to obtain it, there is also appropriate focus placed on either it has to be internal learning or the workforce planning for the external talent hire. So as you asked, how do you remedial actions come from that? It will depend, like competency level required, the cost to obtain, time to obtain, all those factors matter. And then you take your decisions accordingly. There could be a possibility, more likely a possibility to train and develop the resource, or if it is a long duration, high cost, you may hire. So that's about workforce planning. This could be also provide input to how you uh, redefine the role. There could be this also provides that input. How do we redefine it? Having said that, there's no one size fits all approach. I mean, it depends on the complexity of the role, the cost involved, the function itself, the potential incumbent, the approach required. So all those things matter. So there's no, and therefore there's a different uh, program for each and every function, each and every individual. So this is one key element, the competency assessment. The others, there are two other data points that come through our performance management process, which is people performance and growth. Development discussion is a very key ingredient of our performance management process, and it is led by the employee. It promotes a very transparent discussions on the key learning themes that the employee and the manager agree will help enhance the performance on the role, okay, or develop potential for larger roles in the future, or something which is key to the organization culture and behavior. So so there are data points from these discussions that also help to put up a learning program or a development program. Around the critical skills, we have very strong people review. So people review is on talents, but it is also focused on those critical skills which are key to the business continuity of the of that business, and therefore these skills have a very specific discussions through the year, that how do we see the retention, the development, or how do we acquire it, and how do we train it. You identify again those key learning actions around those critical skills, put a plan around that, the remedial actions, and how to, it also helps you put up a retention of those skills in place. So those are the remedial actions around very critical skills. Yeah. So hope this answers your question.
Absolutely, Amresh. Dallas, I would like to come to you here, and we can clearly see learning becoming more of a boardroom agenda rather, and how the discussions are evolving around it. So, how do you see the evolution of enterprise learning in line with changing business expectations, more so as the work models is also changing with the times?
So first and foremost, again, Amrish, I think the competency model that you spoke about is what I think is the most relevant one. So I'll just talk a little bit through that. So the way we see the workforce learning evolve is that one is just the catalog model, which is, you put a lot of catalog, push it to people, and then you have a very traditional metric of just counting the number of hours a person learns on the platform, right? So that's how traditionally we have seen a lot of organizations do that. Then that evolved into what became known as guided learning, where organizations started defining key critical areas, and then they figured out that if they don't, transform in those areas, it will become survival as an issue. So, for example, a company decides that they need everybody to go through some sort of data skills, right? So everybody needs to understand how to visualize data, read data, make decisions on data. So that could be a very foundational skills. and those are emerging as guided learning themes. We also see more compliance and policy related also to be enforced. So typically you measure these through some sort of an approach where you are measuring certifications, course completions, right? So through a certain number of, by a certain date or a certain period, right? So you measure yourself against that. But the one which is most evolved is what Amrish spoke about, is where you are linking learning directly to competencies. At Coursera, we define these as skills first learning, right? Now, at an organizational level, Amrish spoke about the fact that as an organization, you need to understand what roles you have and what are the competencies that you require to map it, right? So that's probably the first step towards that. The second part around that is then you need to bring, when he spoke about the enterprise learning platforms and programs, you talked about scalability, you talked about, relevance to a particular learner, right? Finally, you and me could be on the same role, but our skills could differ on the competencies. So I might be on, let's say, leading teams is a competency that we may have in leadership. And in leading teams, maybe empathy could be an area where, Amaresh is probably well above par and I am below par, right? So his learning journey has to be customized vis-a-vis the other areas that he needs to focus on. Similarly, where I am behind, I need to probably pick up something more foundational nature. So the context there we speak about is get a learning program where n is equal to 1, where the lowest level of denominator is actually the individual learner. And towards that, there are certain, in the platform, we have built something called as level sets, which is first to tell you where do I stand on a particular skill competency. So you are able to map your company's skill competency to the role on the platform. Second, I as a learner can go and see where I sit on those competencies. And then comes the third part, which is I am given a curated set of courses that allows me to make progress on that. Companies can define their own proficiencies, right? So we come with our own, the platform has our own, plus the companies can go ahead and define their own competencies to it. And me as a learner, as I'm making progress, I can actually see how I'm making progress on my skill mastery. Now, this is when we launched this, we launched sometime in the second quarter of this year, and customers where we have deployed skill sets and competency-based learning, we have seen learner uptake and engagement go up by, and completions go up by almost 75%. The reason is simple, that I know where I'm behind, I know where I'm making progress, and I know what I need to do to make the next step forward. So one of the things that the digital learning platforms is able to do is just bring the data element and give me that curation that allows me as a learner to pick what I need to do now, right? Of course, there are some parts of the learning that you cannot do, on a digital platform. There are hands-on platforms that exist, especially with digital skills, but non-digital skills, right? Things which require finally, somebody operating a lathe machine needs to operate a lathe machine, right? And yet you cannot put it probably on a virtual lab yet, right? There is AR, VR technologies emerging, but maybe in the future, but not now. So you still need some of them, like Amaresh spoke about, there is, in some cases, you need a physical classroom or a workshop-based learning. In certain other areas, you need mentor-based learning, where you need someone to coach direct. And then, of course, the other aspect is, how can you bring a community of learners together so that they learn from each other, the social part of the learning, right? So that becomes an equal, so the class discussion forums, ability to engage with a professor, global professor, one of the top universities, and have an exchange on the course that you're undertaking. So those are all stuff that we are seeing as becoming adopted by some of our customers.
Sure, Dallas, thank you. And like we're already talking about the changes that we are seeing at this point in time. Let me, step off a little further, but very quickly, Amresh, if I can move to you now. And career development has also seen a shift in the way it has been approached, and it is viewed today as a kind of partnership with employees. So, in your opinion, how strategic is career development and meeting individual learning aspirations to improve experience and retention? Very quickly on that, Amresh.
See, career development, career aspirations, and how organizations will answer a learning aspiration of an employee is a key factor of overall engagement and retention of employee, and it is now core to the like overall strategy of on the people side. This is one key, and employees are asking it. I mean, it's it's a loud voice every other day that you see in your um, surveys you do, town halls, uh, focus group discussions. This is one big point always: the learning and the career development. These are two big questions, and therefore, to engage the tail, this will be a key to your strategy. And it, what employee is looking at during his life cycle in an organization is his development, sorry, is his her development and learning, uh, what learning the employee has. Now, uh, it is not about a vertical movement they talk about. No, this is assumed as like someone is talking about a vertical growth or something, but actually it is not. A closer discussion reveals that it is more about learning opportunities and experiences that can be provided to an employee to grow in that organization, to grow in different roles, to do more than what they do today. So development opportunities within the organization are big driver of retention of employees. And GE very early, I mean, it's been maybe 10 years, it has moved to a concept of performance development. We never had a performance management cycle, the ratings, etc. The big focus was on performance development, where there were discussions through the year, insights through the year, for the employees and for the managers, uh, and that was the concept, like the discussions and how you use those insights for your development, and what do you do around that to build up a learning program and your learning experiences. Today, we call our program people performance and growth, and it is again, I mean, the our annual cycle is not about uh, the ratings and uh, only the achievements. It's also about there are 3 checkpoints through the year which talk about what will what is the development the employee is looking at. It is like led by the employee. So employee leads it, and there's a discussion between employee and the manager, and it is very continuous. So that's what we do, and it is core to building engagement. It ensures that company retains the knowledge. uh, the company doesn't have to incur the cost of acquiring it all over again. So this remains key to this strategy. This is very strategical that we focus on career development, career discussions, aspirations, and we keep the employee learning at the center of everything.
That's great to know, Amresh. And tell us, as we close, your concluding thoughts on, how should organizations plan at linking learning efforts with tangible business outcomes? Very quickly.
Sure. Uh, so I'll give you the top level answer, and I'll give you something which is more tactical. At the top level, I think we have found a direct correlation of a company's killing and stock performance, right? So there is data that we publish in our annual skills report that we publish. So there was one we did last year, and there is another one that we did this year, and we clearly see companies who are on the cutting edge of skills seem to have higher stock performance, right? There is cutting edge, there is leading edge, and there are the others, right? So we actually see between the leading edge and the cutting edge space, those companies tend to have the much better stock performance. So first, that's at the topmost level. Then, if you were to think of very simple program metrics, we did a what do you call it, study with IDC, one of the analyst companies, that went into about 5 of our top 20,000 plus learner base customers, right? And they came back with a high level ROI. They said it's about a 3-year ROI is about 746% or 7.5x, right? Now, if you were to break that down into certain key areas, what we found, number one, of course, was an employee productivity. They found that there was a higher productivity per learner in terms of the work output that they gave, right? There was some number that they came of 29.3 million odd for those customers set, right? Which was incremental benefit that those learners set, 882 learners that delivered that value. There was the second was the scale part that Amaresh spoke about is the ability to increase the number of learners trained. So there was about 94% increase in the number of learners who could be trained on a platform using a platform approach. Now there was other area which was the employee retention and professional development area. So there was one was the immediate impact which Amaresh spoke about is the retention piece, right? So that's something that you want to have a lot more, because when you lose an employee, not only is it costly, but also is the ability to move, the skill moves away, right? Sometimes to your competitor. So this is directly beneficial to an ROI. So 38% reduction in employee attrition rates. That led to about $1 million reduction in recruitment costs. And most importantly, in a skill-based learning where an employee knows what his skill is today and what he needs to improve to get to the next level, that improves talent mobility. And that again has an impact on retention. So there was a 20% increased likelihood of an employee getting an internal mobility in an area of his choice. So these were some of the metrics that we measured and we worked with our customers on. And as you said, as it becomes more boardroom centric, it will start with what does it impact the company's financial value, right? So that's probably the first thing that you will see. It'll then look at, does it impact our customers' experience, right? Are my customers happier? Or am I able to deliver better customer experience? And then comes the other internal metrics, which are focused around operational metrics that I spoke about.
Sure. Thank you, Dallas. And, this has been a very engaging and dynamic conversation. So thank you, Amaresh and Dallas, for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts with us. This will bring us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Apeksha.
Very engaging. Thanks.
Yep. And thanks,
Thank
Amaresh.
you.
I guess really enjoyed the talk. I'll probably spend a few more minutes and pick your brain and learn a little bit more.